What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Writer's Block powered by Creative Corner Co. My name is Noah Black, and I'm your host. And today's guest, man, I'm excited to sit and chat with him, man. This has been a long time. We've been back and forth about having this type of conversation and being able to get him on the podcast, but we're excited to jump in today. He's a husband, a father, a musician, a songwriter. Man, the list just, I mean, you could write a whole paragraph on it. But he is the vocalist and guitarist for the band Strength Betrayed. They have a new single coming out this Friday, June 23rd. We're going to dive into that a little bit later. But man, it's Thomas Smith. So let's welcome him onto the podcast. Come on.
Woo! I can hear everybody clapping.
That's right. That's right. The studio audience is here.
Yes, exactly. We'll edit that in there.
Yeah. But man, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me, man. I'm pumped to talk to you.
Not a problem, dude. I'm pumped too.
Yeah.
We've been trying to plan this for so long. I'm finally glad that we're able to at least do it by Zoom, you know.
Absolutely, man. But yeah, so we're gonna dive in. You know, we've known each other for a good bit of time from I want to say it was back in 2016 or 17 or something crazy like that.
Like 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, man, it's been cool to see y'all's journey with Strength Betrayed and stuff. But I want to dive in let's go back a little bit. I want to dive into just a little bit of your personal life. As we dive into the music stuff, right? And so talking about with you, I mean, you have tons of experiences within, you know, the rock element, the stuff within leading worship in churches and stuff like that, as well as even just like the more stripped back stuff that you do with your wife, Madeline, and stuff. So, I mean, you kind of have experiences with all sorts of styles and types of music. So kind of what inspired you initially to want to dive into the music space whenever you did?
So if we're going way back, I remember, you know, at the church, we had a few older guys that if we would go on campouts, they would pull their guitars out and they would start playing. And these guys were like teenagers in the 80s. So, you know, they'd be just, you know, playing a bunch of stuff and one of them could sing. And us kids would just sit there and listen to them, and they would go back and forth like, hey, you know this song, hey, you know this song, and then they would play like the whole song, or at least a good portion of it. And I remember too, they were in a band, and one time I remember his name is Mitch Hargrove, and the other guy was, oh my goodness, his name slips my. I'm having the biggest brain fart of my life, but Mitch Hargrove specifically, I saw him, like playing with a band, and he was just tearing it up on the guitar. So back then, I was like, oh, I'm going to learn to play the guitar, and I picked it up for like a week and was like, no, trying to get everything down, but that I always enjoyed music of any kind, and it wasn't until as far as the rock element. So I grew up in church, and I grew up in a Pentecostal church. So we had very boom chuck music, very you had the choir and the drums are people. For those who don't know, boom chuck is like boom chuck, you know, and it's Southern gospel like the Gaithers, and so I grew up with that and whatever, but really I was playing like WrestleMania or SmackDown versus Raw, like video game or something. And the song Firefly by Breaking Benjamin came on, and I had never heard anything that sound anything like that. It blew me away. And so I kind of just stumbled into singing. I just would drive down the road and listen to like my favorite Breaking Benjamin, Skillet, Crossfade, like all those early 2000 like rock bands. Yeah. And I would just sing my guts out, you know, as far in the car. And I would listen to them and be like, how does he do that? And I would try to figure it out. And that's how I've always done it. Even now, as I'm progressing, I'm always trying to get better vocally. Like I'll listen to a band who does stuff I can't do, and I'm like, how do I do that? And I just listen and try to interpret or watch their videos and stuff.
Yeah.
So guitar, I eventually picked it up at like 18, like way too late. Picked it up and I just know enough to hold it down while I sing. Jacob Hare, who is the lead guitar player, I mean, ever since he was 13, he could pick it up and just tear that thing up.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so really with this new stuff, I've actually pulled back. I mean, I help with the writing aspect, but I've pulled back on the guitar side because I'm like, and me and him can talk to this way. I was like, Jacob, nobody listens to our music or comes to our shows to hear you sing. They want to hear me sing. And I was like, and nobody comes to our shows to hear me play guitar. They come to hear you play guitar. So we're kind of like leaning on our strengths to make the best product possible, like letting him and Dylan really write some good guitar stuff. And I just come in as heavy as I can on top of whatever they write.
Right.
And it's worked out. I think it's worked out. So some of our best material so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And so that process, right? So you get into all of that kind of like backstory of things that inspired you and everything like that. So then you dive into Strength of the Trade, right? So then how did Strength of the Trade kind of form together whenever you began that process and began this band that now, I mean, you're putting out singles left and right that we're going to talk about and everything.
Yeah.
Kind of diving into that. So what kickstarted that?
So what kickstarted that? Obviously, I fell in love with the genre, and I mean, I remember when I heard my first Christian rock band, I was like, you can love Jesus and sing, sound like this, And it was Cutlass. It was Cutlass, their first album. I remember listening to that, and it's so cheesy now when I go back, but just nostalgia. But back then, I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome, And then Skillet came out, just blew it wide open. Skillet, Red, 12 Stones, but Flyleaf, I could go down nostalgia road. But I'd been in a worship band that our church had, and after every practice, everybody would go home, and it was me, Jacob, and Taylor, our former drummer, and my brother. We would just stay afterwards and just jam out, like just down tune the guitars, and just start going. And from there, when that group, we kind of parted ways because the youth was getting older and things like that. Me and my brother were like always talking like, man, we want to start this. We want to play this kind of music. And then one day it just kind of like hit us like, well, why don't we? Like, why do we keep saying we want to and we don't? So, and we're like, well, we got to ask Jacob because he's the best guitar player we know right now. So we went to Jacob, and we were well prepared because he was in another like hardcore band at the time. And me, if Jacob wasn't going to join us, we were going to take more of like a Chevelle route, like a different kind of take. But Jacob like immediately said yes. He dipped out of that band and joined us. And then it's just been a slow, long, arduous learning process from there. I don't know if you remember, and it's on the War Torn album because we re-recorded it, but like the first song we ever wrote was Playing with Hearts, which is pretty, generic kind of fun song. It's fun to play, and things like that. But like when we wrote that song, and we wrote it in its entirety as it is on War Torn way back, when we started it. And when we get done, I don't know if you remember, that song ends really quickly and suddenly. We just stop and we're like, okay, we got something here. We came to jam just to see how we gel, and we just wrote a song. So and it just went from there.
Yeah, that's
and
so
then we
cool.
found Seth Altman, which I'll say, in 2019, he moved on to go on. He moved on to bigger and better things. But I got to say, when Seth joined, he's still one of the best bass players I've ever seen with my own eyes. Like he, and by best, I don't necessarily mean he can like just do a bunch of crazy stuff. He was so good at making a song punch you in the mouth and knowing exactly what the song needed.
Right.
And he would add his flair, but it was never too much. And it was great. So we were that group for a long time.
Yeah. That's cool. That's awesome. And so as you dive into we talked about, I mean, you've sent me over the song that we're going to just hit on what we're going to talk about when we're filming this. It's coming out on June 23rd, correct? I want to make sure I get that right.
Yep.
Yeah. And so diving into that, right? You send me over this song, and I know you've sent me a lot of the other stuff before putting it out and everything, and just the production quality you guys are putting into it, and I can tell the structure, the intentionality that you're putting into as you're writing the songs. And like you said earlier, you're constantly trying to get better at what you do, and I mean, you can hear a lot of those practicals put into the songs that you're putting out. And so diving into that a little bit, let's talk about that new song that's coming out, writing, the process of sitting down and writing it. And then, as you get ready to put it out, what is it that you're excited about with some of this new material, and then getting it out to the world to hear?
So even in the past year, we've released 4 new songs, Other Society, Ghost, and Awake. And every one of those songs we loved, and we've kind of gone back and remastered. Dylan's been the guy who we've gone with to record those. And Dylan has learned our sound as we've gone forward. And so with each song, they're sounding better, and that's a good thing. The challenge is, and we've done it and haven't really told nobody, but when we got to Awake, we were like, okay, Dylan, like, can you remix all these other ones to kind of sound like, Awake? And so we went back and did that and uploaded them. But this one was different. I mean, back then we had a discussion, because right now it's just me and Jacob officially in the group, and then anybody else who wants to jump on while we have a show or whatever. We'd get together, we'd write a demo, send it to Dylan. We track it, we go back and forth. And a lot of times when someone else is creatively involved, I just let them have it. I'm not going to I'll put my input once you give me something to talk about.
Right.
The new single that's coming out is Murder. And that's the title of the song, Murder. And there are so many things. We keep running into these perfect storms to where we don't have a lot of ideas. And Jacob's like, well, I got this riff, and it was the riff that you heard at the beginning of the song. By the time this comes out, I'll probably give a little snippet of it or whatever. But it was that, crazy riff at the beginning of the song. And that was all we got. And then from there, we demoed out everything. We changed the bridge and the chorus, but it was almost like 80% done, and sent it to Dylan. He helped us out. I had to step away from it to get a good chorus. I was like, I'm not having it. During the demo process, I was like, I'm just not feeling anything right now.
Yeah. Sat
on it for a long time. And then, boom, had the chorus come to me one day. I called Andrew, who at the time lived right down the road. I was like, I got to come in right now. I got something. and that was the chorus. So we just make it. And at the time, too, we're not chasing trends, but at the time that chorus came out, Sleep Token was really, taking off. And so I kind of leaned into that influence. Like, what's my version of doing a kind of, trancey style heavy chorus, but not copying them or chasing trends that we got to do it this way. It came about honestly out of freaking thin air. Like, that's how all these songs just kind of come out of nowhere,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really cool insight that I know for me, some of my peers and people I look up to talk about that as one of the biggest pieces of advice is not forcing something, but just letting it just kind of naturally happen. And I love that you said that,
absolutely,
you had to take a step back because you weren't feeling anything in that moment.
Oh yeah. And another thing too is one thing that, and this kind of makes the guys roll their eyes a little bit, but it really works for me. If I'm just like trying to create a chorus and I have this certain idea of how this chorus is going to go, but everything is feeling forced, I'm not really like writing on anything, I will actually do the polar opposite. So a good example is the second verse of Murder. I just couldn't think of anything. I couldn't think of anything to sing. I couldn't think, that was in my mind. It's like, what am I going to sing? What am I going to sing? And then I was like, well, what if I just screamed? So it was like the total opposite. Mm-hmm. And dude, when I usually do that, it usually just all comes right on out like really easy. So
Right,
like
right.
when I just flip that switch in my mind, it's like if I'm gonna have to force something like singing, like why can't I just like scream it or something?
Yeah,
And then when I made that flip, the second verse came to me like I just sat down and wrote it and it
yeah,
was done, you know.
yeah.
So I've had to kind of play with my mind here a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I think you get some of the most authentic, not only versions of your songs, but I mean, you look at, I mean, as a musician and people that are watching this or listening to this that are in the music space or want to be in the music space, that music they connect with is the like stuff that just feels authentic and just feels like they can connect with it. And a lot of
Right.
times, if you go and research those people, they're going to tell you this is just what flowed out in that moment naturally. It's not anything I had
Yeah.
to sit down and force myself to do it. And so that's such a good insight there.
And people can tell when a song is forced. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
easy to pick up on, you know. So we try to be as genuine as possible. And that even comes down to the lyrics. I'm
Yeah.
not going to write something to appeal to an audience. I'm going to write something that um, really comes out raw. And so a good example is Dylan, you know, not blowing, you know, my smoke or whatever, but for my own ego. But Dylan said one time, he's like, dude, you have a way of just getting emotions across and that a lot of people don't have. And I was, well, first off, the lyrics we write are just very, very, very personal. But also, too, I was like, you know, when I'm recording, like, I need to actually, I should have done this. And I need to actually have somebody film me tracking vocals because, like, I'm crying, I'm mad, my facial expressions change. I put my headspace in that moment, like awake, especially that song. I've heard that so many people got touched by that song. And that song was raw. I didn't even want to release it because it was
Mm.
so raw,
Right.
as far as lyrical content. And when we demoed that track, I remember like getting done with it. And I put my whole body into it. And I looked over because there are just chairs sitting over there, and everybody's eyes were like that big, and they were like, "Dude, like, are you okay? You know, what have you
Yeah.
been through? You know." So with
Yeah.
Murder, same thing. I just we just poured everything we had into it, everything we have into it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's so good. And that's, I mean, I'm sure attributes to, I mean, you're very vocal about you guys making sure that you carry a message of your faith into your music, right? And so there's a lot of that elements that carry into it. And I think a way that you hear a lot of people talk about in especially the like hard rock and metal space, right? Of there's a lot of the like, oh, I don't want to do the like corny Christian thing, right? Or I don't want to do, but I've noticed in just your lyricism alone, like strip the instruments and stuff away, you have a way of conveying those aspects of your life in a way that I think is relatable, that whether or not you are, you know, somebody who is like, I am a follower of Jesus,
Yeah,
unapologetically unashamed,
yeah.
or somebody that's like, I'm actually on the opposite side of the fence, but I relate with what he's saying, right? And so, is there been,
Hmm.
whenever you go into that too, do you find that there's like a tug and pull of like trying to appeal to a certain market, or is it just like I got to break this and I'm just this is where I'm at, this is how I feel, and I'm just going to go for it?
I think that as far as it comes to the actual songs and lyrics, um, it cannot come out as it does vocally and lyrically. I mean, vocal performance wise. Um, and if I were to try to appeal to any market, left, you know, like faith or not faith, it would come out as cheesy. So if I tried to write drug, sex, rock and roll, it wouldn't work. That's not me. But if I tried to force a message into something that is incredibly personal, um, that would come across as cheesy too. I told people like Murder, this new song, is actually one of the most Christianese songs that we have because Other is about me kind of just wrestling with kind of growing up and wrestling with um, you know, the past with my dad society is very open about how, everything in our society is empty, and I don't want to live by these beliefs that are being
Right.
forced on me. Ghost is about Jacob, had like lived through a divorce at a later age. And so that's what Ghost is about, kind of feeling that resentment. And then Awake is, without going into detail, because that song is very, very personal, but it's about overcoming mental challenges,
Mhm.
and not turning to substances to overcome those.
Right.
I can't have my cake and eat it too. I'm not the same when I'm with you, and I can't deny it. So none of these songs are really like life is hard, but God, you're good. Like your,
Yeah. Yeah.
standard kind of Christian radio song. Murder is a little bit more on the world is, all I see around me is murder. That's the word I use in the songs. Everything I see is murder. I've tried to go my own way. I've tried, to lean on this and lean on that. And I find that it was a realization around the time we wrote the song. I came to a realization that I was still involved in church, still involved in faith. But I was like, you know what? Like, I noticed, like, the more I invest in my faith, the happier person I am, the less
Mhm.
pessimistic I am. So that's what it says. All I see is murder. When I stop fighting against you, I can leave this murder behind. So
Yeah.
it's one of the more, even though it's definitely the heaviest song that we've written. It's definitely one of the more overt in as far as talking about faith and kind of
Right.
wrestling with that.
Yeah, yeah, that's really really good. And I'm sure you've experienced this too within, I mean, the amount of years that you've already done this of, kind of getting things from both sides, right? Of there's probably people in a space where it's like, I don't want you talking about the faith thing as much, but then there's people on this side. It's like you're not talking about Jesus enough, and so
Oh
that's
yes.
something. I mean, I've
Oh.
experienced that. I mean, in my own life and previous music and even stuff that I do now and stuff. It's just you never can please both sides, and so whenever I
Hmm.
found this, I'm going to be a little more explicit about stuff like now, but like
Hmm.
it's one of those weird things of when your pursuit of God and allowing him to transform you, and when music is kind of like the tool that he's given you to use, whenever you're just living that out actively and allowing him to guide you through that, both sides, whether you're appealing to either side, it doesn't matter. And so I think that is such a good testament to that in your life. And so, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced very similar things in your journey as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even my pastor got, two phone calls, the other day. One was, why does Thomas have the devil in his music video? Talking about Awake. I don't know if you've seen it,
Mhm.
where it was me in the suit. I dressed in this big creature thing. Some people just don't get symbolism. I'm not saying that they're
Yeah.
not smart, but there's a lot of symbolism in that video. But another thing too is, um, my pastor got a phone. I was like, I heard our worship leader plays at bars. Is that true? And by saying plays at bars, I knew what he was insinuating. Like,
Yeah.
I'm playing honky tonk at some, bar, getting drunk. Like, there was a lot of insinuation behind
Right.
that. And I'm like, dude, we ain't played a show since 2019. But if I play a music hall, they're going to serve alcohol, I'm sure. So, but that's not. I think one thing that I found to be true is people who are like, you're not talking about Jesus enough. You don't write enough songs about Jesus enough. They're not songwriters.
Exactly.
They're not songwriters. They're not musicians. Once you tap into that, side of yourself, and you find a genuine way to express, because if I'm going to be 100% honest, Strength Betrayed is not a ministry. I tried to make it a ministry at the beginning, and it did not work out.
Yeah.
It turned more people off than people want to listen to us. So when it just became a platform for a Christian like me to just kind of express myself in ways that worship doesn't allow, or certain things doesn't allow, um, that are like just open and honest. It connects with people, and that more than likely, usually on stage, I kind of quickly mention what we're about and we move on because people want to, especially if it ain't a Christian show, you need to play your rock music, or
Yeah.
you want to get something thrown. So, but a lot of times we get people, at least one or two people, didn't you say you're, and I usually say we're a faith-based band or we're a Christian band from Dunn, North Carolina. And, they'll be like, that's pretty cool, and they're reeking of alcohol, but they're like, that's pretty awesome, man. I went to church and it sucked, but you guys are great. That kind of, and we just start that conversation. And that's the thing that people don't get.
Yeah.
That's the thing that people don't see. We have fans that live lives that we don't necessarily agree with, but we as a band just love them. Because we'll talk to them and, we'll just say, hey, I don't believe that, but you don't have to believe what I believe, but I'm glad you like Awake. If you want to talk about it, let me know,
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. That's huge. It's knowing knowing the kind of environments that you're in. Right. And so I think you worded that well of, there's a time and a place for everything. And so it's, if you come to a Strength of Trade show or like, and we don't have an altar call, like chill out. Like it's not, there's environments for, like, let me invite you to church. You know what I'm saying? So it's just those environments. And so I think you hit the nail on the head really, really well. And so I think that's so crucial. So diving in, back into that too, I want to get a little bit more into the experiences that you've had as a songwriter, as a musician, and kind of advancing that. Just from the experience you have had so far, what's some advice for somebody that's listening or watching that they're either an aspiring songwriter, if I can English, somebody that kind of wants to dive into that, or they already are a songwriter and they're just looking to, hey, let me take a next step. How do I get better at this or that? What's some advice that you would give to those listening?
I would definitely find out your strengths and ask people to be honest and ask people who will be honest. My strengths are the choruses. That I've never had an issue writing a chorus. My weaknesses have always been the verse, getting to the chorus. So, just admittedly, there's some songs that are on the War Torn album that I'm like, gosh, that was the chorus is great, but it was, listening back, I'll still sing those songs. Listening back, it's like I remember, I remember writing it. I had no idea how I was going to get to the chorus. So one thing is just being very open with what my weaknesses are, allowing my strengths to really come through. And so there's a friend of mine that, if I ask his opinion, doggone it, I'm going to get it, and so, but you also have to gauge that out. If you got someone who's, I'll kind of send things out to a bunch of people. Hey, what you think? And, if one guy hates it, but like 4 or 5 other guys love it, then, okay, well, there's your thing,
Yeah.
So a lot of issues that I see in the music world, is, and I know you saw it when you were playing live in a band, is ego. A lot of ego. A lot of people think their songs are great, and you're like, you're just like, dude, you guys, you don't tell them this, and you're like, God, y'all stink so bad, So what I would say is this: if you're an aspiring musician, don't stop. Be self-critical. Don't be self-destructive, but be self-critical. Really be honest, because you can always strengthen your weaknesses. You can always find better ways of doing things. Hook up with people that you trust, and make sure the next song is better than the last, or at least try to make it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so good. That's so good. And from personal experience, I would 100% agree. It's one of those weird things that no matter what type of music you're creating, there's inevitably going to be things that you you're just not the best person at doing it. And I think for myself, for the longest time, I tried to do just I self-produce and I self-mix and I do all this, which there was good that came from that of like getting better and getting your reps in. But it eventually gets to a place where, like, for me, I suck at mixing. I'm terrible at it. Like I did, like I go back and listen to stuff from earlier and I'm like, dude, this sounds terrible. But more recently having like hiring, I mean, he's now, I hate to just say hiring, but like building a relationship with a mixing engineer who I'm like, hey, I'm comfortable and confident with producing and adding tracks and putting this concept together. I just need somebody who's going to refine it, who hasn't sat and listened to it 2,000 times like I already have. And now I'm overthinking.
Yeah.
And that's made me more confident in the stuff that's putting out. And so I think that's such a great point of whatever your weak points are, identify them, and then who are people in your circle that can fulfill that to where it's not you doing it. And sometimes that means you got to let go of the control and let go of the wheel. And as musicians, that can be a hard thing to do sometimes.
Oh, yeah. And you just got to develop thick skin, because if you work with a producer, their job is not to make you feel good. Their job is to put the best performance possible.
Yes.
So like I had a guy one time, I did a take, and I was just like, man, I thought it was pretty all right. And so they obviously stopped it, and I didn't even see him. I was in the booth and in-ears, and he was like, do that again, but don't suck. And then we did it again. And I was like, okay, all right. And I was like, got it. There's one time where the guy was like, I was trying to tap into being mad, really gritting my teeth and getting mad on a song. And the guy goes, if you get this wrong again, I'm going there and slap you so you can get mad, and it was just like, all right, we're here,
Yeah. That's huge. Yeah. And there's so many people that they're geared towards that, right? They may have learned in the process, whether it's a producer or a mixer or whatever, that they've tried to do this, and that, and they've realized they've landed on, I do best at producing, or I do best at mixing. And so you just got to trust those people, because inevitably they're going to know better about it than what you do. And so I think that's so good. And just trusting people of like, once you find the right people, like you'll click with them really, really well.
100%. Yes.
They'll understand your vision. That you can trust them of like, some people are like, this song is my baby and I'm handing it to somebody else. But then it's like those people, once you find the right people, they're going to do what they can to make you sound your best and actually get the message or the tone of the song across so well. So,
yeah.
All right, man. So as we kind of wrap this thing up, right, I want to make sure that, as you get ready to dive into, releasing this next song and everything, how is it that people can stay connected to you personally, as well as to Strength of the Trade and all that, but then also some things that people can kind of be looking out for throughout the rest of the year that you're kind of looking forward to?
So we're definitely, as far as singles, like I said, we got a new one coming out. As far as the recording of this video, it's going to be the 23rd. We're going to kind of put the brakes on the singles and really let them develop like we did this one. We're really going to slow down and make sure every single comes out swinging. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook. We have a YouTube. We're really active on Instagram. We have a TikTok, but darn it, I guess we're going to have to start using it. But really, around there, you can follow me. My name's Captain Christoph. It's my actually gamer tag. Jacob Hare's on there as well. You can follow him. Jacob's going to start doing his own media stuff. He's building a studio, so he'll probably do a lot of playthroughs and stuff. And just keep an eye out. We're looking to play live again. And hey, if you're interested in joining us, let us know. But we're looking to play live again. And we got a lot of good friends that can fill the spot, but we'd like to kind of just start adding people on.
All right. Well, man, Thomas, I just want to say thank you for jumping on and chatting, man. I mean, there's so much that we've been waiting to kind of chat on and talk through. And so it's cool to see where you guys are at already. And man, I'm excited for what the rest of the year holds as you guys continue to kind of keep the momentum going and, just kind of putting out stuff that's raw and that's authentic to you guys. And so, man, I appreciate you coming on and chatting, man.
No, it's been great. It's been great. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since I've seen you.
I know. I'm like,
so,
I'm like, I'm married and about to be a dad and stuff now. So it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Oh yeah. Oh
Dad
yeah.
life's
Man, we're
great.
pumped.
Dad life is great. It's great. I love
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah. We're pumped, man. We're pumped. We are, man, I have the complete confidence in my wife to where if I start to suck in any form or fashion, she'll do just fine. So,
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
yeah. Yeah. Well, man, look forward to talking to you again soon and staying connected, all that good fancy stuff. And man, look forward to talking to you again soon, dude.
All right. You guys have a good one.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for watching or listening, wherever you're checking us out from, hanging out with us on the Writer's Block. Be sure to stay connected with us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the stuff and things, man. And be sure to stay connected as we, have more content like this coming out in the future. We look forward to talking to you all again soon.